I have been in a reading slump lately. I have been reading books, but it felt painful. Let's talk about that. Hi, my name is Emma Tobias, and this is a reading wrap-up, in which I will discuss the things that I have read over the last 3 or so months. The first book I'm going to talk about is Star Daughter by Shui Tatakwar. This is a YA debut novel, fantasy, which is not normally my cup of tea, but I thought I would give it a try. I listened to the audiobook on script, is how I gave it a try. It's about a young girl who is half star, half human. And she goes on a journey of self-discovery to basically figure out herself and where she fits literally into the universe. I am not a big fantasy reader. I am not a big YA fantasy reader specifically. I'm more of a middle grade fantasy reader myself. So I don't really think this book is really a book that I was ever gonna love, but I didn't hate it. I liked it. It was good. I thought it was fine. I think I would have liked it more as a younger person, when I was more into fantasy of the YA persuasion. I'm gonna link to a review that's much better by a YouTuber called Read with Ansu, who I think does a better job of talking about this book. So I'm gonna link that down below if you're interested in learning about Star Daughter. Next, I read Queenie by Candace Cardy Williams. This is an adult genre fiction novel about a young black woman named Queenie who lives in England, in London area, the greater London area, who is on a journey of self-discovery, but different than the last book. In that, this is real and she's not a star. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed it. I think it's going to be one of my favorites of the year. It's about a woman who really is struggling and making a lot of poor life decisions. It has a lot of similar vibes to like a Fleabag moment, and I love books about women who are going through it, and we really see that with Queenie. It has great female friendships. It has an interesting family dynamic. It talks a lot about mental health and trauma and therapy and learning how to cope. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time, a funny time, and a sad time, which were all the things that I most like in a book and in a time. Of Literature and Lattes by Catherine Ray. Catherine Ray. Of Literature and Lattes is one of my least favorite books I've read this year, but also one of my favorites. This is a general fiction, sort of semi-romance novel about a lot of intersecting lives in a small town in the Midwest. Now you might say to yourself, Emma, don't you love small town books? And I would say, yes, Emma, I love small town books. Emma, then why did you have a problem with this small town book? And I would say, Emma, it was boring. This isn't that cute. I thought this book was fine. It's about basically two main characters. Their lives intersect the most, I would say, because they fall in love. One guy is a guy who is a guy, and he is a guy who runs a coffee shop that has gentrified the town, and he comes from Seattle and is trying to be closer to his daughter, who lives in this town with his ex-wife. That was a lot. The other is about a gal. The gal is a gal who used to work for a sort of Theranos-like company. If you don't know what Theranos is, it involves my favorite girl boss gal, Elizabeth Holmes. And she has to run away because she's being indicted by the US government. So she runs away back to her small town and has an attitude problem, basically, for the rest of the book, despite the fact she is a grown-up gal. I hated it. I hated the characters, and I hated their romance, and I hated the tweeness of it, and I hated how the narrator said lattes, because she said it lattes, because she was a British narrator, despite the fact this book is set in the US. But saying all that, I also enjoyed it. I can't really explain why. I enjoyed it the way I enjoy Hallmark movies. Next, I did a video with my booktube bestie, Emma, from Drinking by My Shelf, and we did the love/hate challenge, which we'll be doing again, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid because we're gonna do thrillers, and that's scary, and I'm also afraid. just in general. This one was about romance, though, and Emma chose 2 books that were not really romance, but I forgive her, and you should too. The book that I read was The Coincidence Authority. This is about a guy who specializes in coincidences and is annoying, and he falls in love with a manic pixie dream girl who is also annoying. I hated it. It was weird, it was problematic, it was bad. It was boring and bad and weird and problematic. Next, for that video, I read Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was good. This was something that I enjoyed. This is a book about a young woman who basically follows her through 2 different life experiences that she could possibly have. Kind of a multi-dimensional situation, but not that exciting, but also pretty exciting. I liked this book. It's about a woman going through it. She's more annoying than some of the other women who are going through it, but I liked her by the end. It has an okay romance. I really like this book because I like how the main character interacts with her best friend. I think that's the strongest point in this book. I enjoyed the way it was written. It was very exciting. Taylor Jenkins Reid knows how to write an exciting book. And all in all, it was a good time. Plus, I listened to the audiobook and Julia Whelan did the narration, and we love, we stand, we live, we die, we live, we stand, we live for her. Julia Whelan, a queen. So I reread one of my favorite books of all time, Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. I am rereading these specifically. The first time I read them physically, and so I'm listening to the audiobook now. And I decided to reread them because the 3rd book comes out, Hollowpox, here in the US in November, so I'm preparing. Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow is godly. It is a great book. It is so good and cozy and wonderful and perfect for these spooky season vibes. There's a great chapter set at Halloween that is the most Halloween-y thing ever. And I just love it. It's so cute, it's so fun, it's exciting, it doesn't pull any punches. It's all in all a really great middle grade book that I think transcends the genre, which is the best thing about middle grade, is when it does that and does it well. I really love this series. Next, I read an arc of Shit Actually by Lindy West. This is a collection of essays, specifically movie reviews of a comical nature by feminist, critic, activist, altogether wonderful lady, Lindy West. I have read both of Lindy West's books previous to this one, The Witches Are Coming and Shrill is one of my favorite books of all time, and The Witches Are Coming is very good. So I had high expectations, and they were met. Shit Actually is the sort of butter, if you will, that we need in this horrible year. It's the creme de la creme. It's the icing on the cake. It's really funny. Lindy West reviews everything from The Fugitive to Harry Potter to Forrest Gump to Top Gun to Back to the Future to Love Actually, and I laughed the entire way through. Pick it up. It comes out soon. I'll put when it comes out here on the screen. And then finally I read Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. I listened to the audiobook for this one. Hey, by the way, if I said that I read something and I don't specify that I listened to the audiobook, that means I read it physically. If I listen to the audiobook, I'm probably going to talk about specifically if I liked the audiobook in the review. That's just a little sidebar between you and me. I liked the audiobook for this. Catherine House is a dark academia book about a house called Catherine House. It's a postgraduate situation, postgraduate not meaning after college, meaning after high school. I ruined the term postgraduate. It's about a girl who's running away from something, a crime sort of thing, and she goes to Catherine House, and it's weird. It's a weird place full of weird people doing weird stuff. There's a little bit of science, there's a little bit of not science, there's a little bit of creeps and spooks. It's very atmospheric. I enjoyed it. One of my favorite books is The Magicians by Grossman. I love that whole series a lot. And that's a book about unlikable characters doing nothing until they're doing something. And this book is about unlikable characters just really doing nothing. And I also think that works for me. It wasn't my favorite. I wouldn't say it was the best thing I've ever read. I wouldn't even say it was the best dark academia thing I've ever read. but I enjoyed listening to it, and I enjoyed the experience of it, and I think I will definitely read more by Elizabeth Thomas. All in all, a good time. Okay, so that's everything that I read in the last few months. A real mixed bag. I would say the only thing that I came out of it thinking was that I loved Queenie, and I loved rereading Nevermore, and I really loved Shit Actually. Everything else I felt kind of like good or less than good about, which happens. What am I currently reading? I'm not going to tell you. I have to wait for the next wrap up. Hope y'all are well.